Food and medicine is growing freely and abundantly all around us here in Florida. And today I'm going to introduce you to 17 plants that you can forage that can change your life. Fruits, greens, wild yams, a whole variety of foods and medicines that most of us pass up and don't even know. Many of us have seen these before. Today you're gonna learn how you can work with them as food and medicine. And these are the easiest to identify, most abundant plants that you can bring in a lot of nourishment into your life. This is Loquat. It's a common landscaping plant like magnolia. And I would say most people who have this in their front yard don't eat it, and a lot of people don't even know that it's edible. Another name for loquat is Japanese plum, and I like to eat these by just biting this tip, spitting that out, right in the mouth, and then spit out the seeds. You can of course dehydrate these or can them as well, but usually it's fresh. This is wild banana, an abundant food to harvest here in Florida. And it's not truly wild, it's feral. You'll find stands like this along a lot of the roadsides, and bananas reproduce from one single pup can turn into a whole stand of dozens or even hundreds of bananas. So sometimes in places like this, you'll get numerous racks. What I like to do with bananas is, well, I eat them in many different ways. Of course, you can let them ripen and eat them yellow as a fruit. You can boil them and eat them like a potato. I like to dehydrate them with the peel on and then blend that into a flour with the green peel and with the fruit. That's a green banana flour. When you harvest it, you actually cut the whole plant down. It's not a tree, it's a grass, and the plant only produces once, so you pull this whole part down. If you find wild stands like this and you see that there's not plants that have been chopped down and you can tell that it's not being maintained, then this is good feral banana harvesting. So happy to have a little score. And you might wonder what's going on here. Well, there was a recent freeze here, so all of the bananas have died. But they're going to come back up by pups. And those little pups, planting one pup can turn into a whole stand of bananas like this. So this is a great plant to gorilla plant to get more growing. Coconuts grow abundantly here in Florida, and if you're looking for a food that helps you to drastically break free from the grocery store, this is absolutely one of them. They grow in public spaces as well as private spaces, so this is another one where you can knock on doors and get to know people in your community, or find them just growing in public parks and public spaces. There are two different main coconuts you're going to be working with. You've got your green coconuts to your brown coconuts, plus a whole spectrum in between. In summary, green ones are for drinking coconut water, brown ones are for a whole lot of different products. So with the brown ones, you're going to get mature nuts inside with this white meat. And with this, I can blend this, turn it into coconut milk, and then I can use that as a base for a coconut curry. I will dehydrate this and have coconut flakes. You can also make coconut butter and coconut oil. And when you blend it and you make that coconut milk, that leftover fiber is actually coconut flour that you can then cook with and bake with. So a very versatile food, and one of my absolute key foods for foraging in Florida. Now, just one small note, some of the trees are injected with pesticides that are particularly damaging to our bodies, more so than some other pesticides. So the simple thing to do is only harvest from trees that you know haven't been sprayed, which means talking to people and getting that confirmed. A short little lesson on harvesting the brown coconuts, or what I call the brownies. You can harvest these from the trees, but generally I just harvest these once they've fallen. And what you're looking for really high quality brownies that haven't spoiled yet, first you're looking for a nice sheen or shine that shows that they haven't been sitting for too long. You're looking for this umbilical cord that has no moisture or no rotting. If it's moist or rotting, there's a good chance the nut is bad. And then when you pick it up, it should have some weight to it, but it's not going to be heavy like the green nuts, but you're going to have some weight. And then the key is to shake it. So come on a little closer over here, and I want to make sure that you can hear this. That's what we're going for. That's a nice shake right there. So that means there's there's a good amount of water inside, which this is the coconut water that's coming from these brown nuts. This is a beautiful patch of cucumber weed, also called pellitory, and this is a very abundant green growing here in Florida. The reason it's called cucumber weed is because it tastes like cucumber, and it mostly, I would say, tastes like cucumber when it's more young and tender. When it's older, it starts to get a little bit of a stronger flavor. When I'm looking for cucumber, what I'm actually looking for with cucumber weed is the stems are somewhat translucent and they don't have a lot of fiber. They're very high in water content, similar to a cucumber. You can eat the stem, the leaves, these seeds on here. Nice cucumber flavor. And what I actually discovered recently is on some of the bigger stems, they actually taste like curry tree leaf, one of the ingredients in curry. So this is just another wonderful green that grows here in Florida that people consider a weed that can be eaten in pretty large quantities, the wonderful cucumber weed. Most people look at a scrappy patch like this and they just see weeds. They see a problem that has to be dealt with. But I look at this and I see food. In fact, looking around this patch, almost all of this is food and medicine that is growing. Right in front of me, this is Biden's alba, or Spanish needle, and this is one of the most common plants in Florida, but only a small percentage of Floridians eat this plant. It's most known because of these seeds that stick to our clothes. That's where the name Spanish needle comes from. And so this is a cursed plant by many, but for me, it's food. How I like to eat Biden's alba is I like to pick the tender growth tips, so the ones that have brighter green and the ones where I can break off the tips really easily, where it's bendy. And then I generally cook Biden's alba. I'll saute it, blanch it, maybe boil it, and you can also make pesto from Biden's alba as well. You can eat the greens at any time, but when they're young and tender, they're just going to be more desirable. And you can eat the flowers as well. I like to eat those raw as a snack, as a nibble, or adding them into salads as well. It's got a very unique flavor. It's the flavor of the sunflower family. That's the family that they're a part of. So it's not a flavor that you get from the grocery store, from the domesticated palate. This is a plant that you'll grow to love as you rewild your palate. So a great plant to stop spraying, stop trying to destroy, and if you find it to be a problem, eat the problem. This plant is not just important for humans for food and medicine, it's also very important for the insects that we share this home with. The flowers are considered to be one of the most important flowers for pollinators in Florida. They're kind of available 12 months of the year around, and that's one of the reasons that they're very important. And herbalists love this plant too. It has many uses when it comes to herbal remedies. This is peppergrass. Some people call this poor man's pepper, but I like to call it rich man's pepper. And this is a very common weed that grows throughout Florida. You'll see it in different stages. Here is the most commonly noticed stage. You can see all of the green seeds. Here it is in a younger stage where it's got nice tender leaves and there's some flowers on here. And then I have it in even younger stages here before it's got seed or flowers. It's edible at all of these stages. You can strip off the seeds and then use this. Some people would call this as a pepper substitute, hence the name rich man's pepper or poor man's pepper. I like to eat the leaves as well, and what I like to do if I'm eating a lot of it is I find the ones that are young and tender and break off the tips right where they easily break off. I'll add that to salads and I'll cook with it as well. It's got a wasabi-ish kick, so it's on the stronger side, not black pepper, more like wasabi. And this is a food that can be harvested in very substantial quantities. So another wonderful weed here in Florida. Here I am with wood sorrel or oxalis, and of all the plants that I'm sharing, this is one that I don't eat in the largest quantity, but it's a really nice one to incorporate into our diet. The reason why is that basically nobody doesn't like the flavor of wood sorrel. It's lemony. It's because of the oxalic acid, and this is something that's loved by just about everybody who tries it. As a matter of fact, I've heard stories from many children who eat this, and it's one of the first, or it's the first plant they forage. They're not even instructed to eat this plant. So there's an innate knowing still that hasn't been lost in many of us that this is a food and a medicine. Oxalis or wood sorrel, what you're looking for is 3 heart-shaped leaves. If you see the 3 leaves like this that doesn't have the heart shape, that might be clover, red clover or white clover. You're looking specifically for 3 heart-shaped leaves. They can be growing, there's numerous different species. Some have really large leaves like this, some have tiny little leaves, and they have these flower stalks as well. The flowers are also edible, and they can range in different colors. They can be pink or purple or yellow, depending on the species of oxalis. So you can eat the flowers, the stems, and the leaves, and it's a really joyful one to add into your diet. This is Brazilian pepper, and these are peppercorns. In fact, they even sell this in some grocery stores. This is a plant that's considered to be highly invasive in Florida. And one thing that you can do if you want to start foraging in Florida but you're concerned about doing harm to the ecosystem is you can eat plants that are considered invasive. There's a term for people who do this. They're called invasivores, like carnivore, locavore, herbivore. Well, an invasivore is a person who focuses on eating plants that are considered invasive. And when we do this, every single bite that we take is an ecosystem service, because we're removing this from the population, from the ability to spread. You can actually also cut down these as well to help minimize them, but at the very least we can eat them and buy less at the grocery store. The way that the Brazilian pepper is eaten the most is generally a seasoning for meat and fish, and I like to put this on my mullet that I catch here in Florida. So if you're expecting black pepper, you're not going to be happy. But if instead you open your mind up and your taste buds up to exactly what this is, well, millions of people eat Brazilian pepper. It's got a fruity, floral, with a little bit of a spice, and it also varies from plant to plant. So if you don't like one, try another one. This is Smilax, and a lot of people will curse these vines because of the thorns, and they can hurt quite a bit. But this is also a wonderful food and medicine. What we're looking for is in the springtime when there's these new growth tips. You can run your finger along these, and when you get to the place where it snaps clean off, that's what you harvest. You can eat the whole stem, the young leaves, as well as these tendrils, and this is often called wild asparagus. It has a very similar flavor to asparagus, and you can eat this fresh, just like that, or you can cook it. And what you're looking for with Smilax, the larger tips tend to have a milder flavor. I've found ones that are as thick as my pinky and even as long as from my fingertip to my bicep. So it's possible to harvest a pretty substantial amount of this food And rather than having to buy asparagus at the store, be able to get it sustainably from the land that is growing right around us. This blanket here is Dollarweed, and this is a very common weed here in Florida. Now, a note, weeds are just a human concept. There is no such thing as a weed, and all of these plants have their ecosystem service. They all have their benefits in their place. And with Dollarweed, one of those places is its wonderful food. It's a unique flavor. It's on the stronger side, so I would generally say mixing it in with salads or sauteing it with other greens. But I find that to be quite pleasant raw, just like that. What you're looking for with Dollarweed is it's got the coin shape, hence the name Dollarweed. It's a round leaf with lobes around the edges, and then the stem attaches in the center of the leaf. Dollarweed generally grows where there's moisture. So this is a perfect example of an area where moisture would collect. You'll find this growing in lawns that get watered a lot, and then also along the edges of ponds and lakes and creeks and such. So Dollarweed, just one more wonderful food and medicine growing right here in Florida, and honestly, I can't get enough. Wild citrus. This is a very abundant food to harvest here in Florida, and you have many different varieties. Here is the sour orange, which generally people don't like to eat, but they'll use it for marinating meats, and you can make similar to a lemonade, an orangeade from these sour oranges. But there's a lot of sweet oranges in Florida as well. Where I often find these growing is under the live oaks. This is an area where they tend to be more protected or less susceptible to the citrus greening. And I have found acres of wild citrus growing under the live oaks, including tangerines as well. Other places you can find wild citrus would be old abandoned orchards that aren't being used anymore. I found a lot of really great grapefruits growing in city parks, especially in Orlando. And then also, of course, there's a lot of people who have citrus growing in their yards that they're not eating, that's going to waste. Another opportunity to talk with your neighbors. So between the oranges, the tangerines, the grapefruits, and the sour orange, there is a lot of opportunity to be harvesting wild citrus here in Florida. This is mulberry, planted in a public median by someone who obviously wants to share the fruit and grow community. Although mulberry is not as common as some of the other urban fruit that I find, when I do find it, it is a wonderful joy. Some people see these little berries, which can get much bigger, and they think it's a blackberry tree. But nope, this is a mulberry tree. They're much sweeter than a blackberry. Now, what I love just as much about mulberry, the leaves are edible too, and very nutritious. With the leaves, I make a green powder, and then I can carry these greens with me and have green powder wherever I go. Mulberry is also one of the easiest plants to propagate by cutting, so you can take cuttings from this, take it home, and plant your own mulberries. This is the dwarf everbearing variety, which produces much smaller fruits, but can produce fruit throughout the year. I'm in Jacksonville, so very northern Florida, and I'm here with a different mulberry. This isn't the dwarf everbearing mulberry that's generally planted by permaculturists. This is the mulberry you're gonna find growing wildly on its own, and I wanted to show you this example because you can see the new leaves coming out on here. All of these leaves are edible, and this is generally considered a weed tree, so it's one that can be harvested in abundance. And you eat these leaves when they're young and tender. They can get bigger, much bigger, and still be edible, but these are ideal for making that leaf powder. Mango. If you're looking to harvest an incredible amount of fruit in the city that you can store the abundance for, mango is my #1 candidate. You'll find mango in empty lots like this in many urban environments, including Fort Myers and Fort Lauderdale and Miami, South Florida, and parts of Central Florida. And besides finding it in empty lots like this that are absolutely free for the picking, you can find a lot of it growing in city parks, also free for the picking, and in people's front yards where it's hanging over onto the street. Now, I'm not talking about stealing, I'm talking about gleaning, so the fruit that's falling to the ground and making a mess. And I've knocked on many doors. I walk up, I knock, I say, "Hello, my name's Robin, and I noticed there's a lot of fruit falling to the ground, your mangoes, and I was wondering if you're not eating them, if I can harvest them." And the answer is almost always yes, and often an enthusiastic yes, because they don't want to see this food going to waste. Mango is great for dehydrating, freezing, making juice. You can make a mango vinegar, as well as different preserves. So if you're looking to harvest a lot of fruit in the city, this may be my #1 candidate. This is Yaupon holly, and for those of you looking to break free from coffee, well, this is your plant right here. It is actually the only caffeinated plant that grows naturally in the continental United States. It is a relative of yerba mate, which grows in South America, and that's basically what it's like, the cousin of yerba mate. Nutritionally, it's basically the same as drinking green tea. So if you're looking for a buzz that you can get naturally while doing no harm to the ecosystem by plugging into the global industrial system of coffee, Yaupon holly is the plant for you. It grows natively throughout much of Florida and the Gulf Coast states, and you'll find this growing in many forests, but also as a landscaping plant. This is grown as hedges full of caffeine that is available to you. I have the leaves right here that I dehydrated, and you want to dehydrate the leaves before enjoying them. And a lot of people will roast them as well. In fact, you can even buy Yaupon holly from numerous different companies. The Yaupon brothers are one that is here in Florida, leading the way to bringing this really wonderful local resource into our markets. So again, keep an eye out for this in your natural spaces as well as in landscaping, and break free from the coffee. Here we have wild yam, Dioscorea alata, also called the winged yam, but for me it's just wild yam. This is one of the most incredible food sources that grows in Florida. The largest one I've ever harvested was 157 pounds, and basically you can work with this like you would potatoes. So you can boil it, you can fry it, you can make fries, you can, one thing I like to do is dehydrate it and make yam flour. And then with this yam flour, I can make basically tortillas, sort of like cookies. Here's basically a yam bread of sorts that I made this morning. So you can store this for long term, but actually these yams, once you dig them up from the ground, they can store for multiple months, just like this. And they actually self-heal when you cut them. They scab over and they heal, so you can keep just cutting chunks off of this. So this is one of the best calorie sources of wild foods in the state of Florida. And how you find it, you're looking for the vines. You're not going to find the yam without finding the vines that are growing up the trees. And you're looking for the bulbils. The bulbils with this, compared to air potato, which has round, gray, and smooth bulbils, these tend to be more elongated, brown, and more scaly. So that's what you're looking for. If you really want to learn how to identify and find the wild yam, Green Dean's website, eattheweeds.com, is that's the source you can go to learn everything that you need to know in order to identify the wild yam. The base for this is Orlando as well as Gainesville, and you can use the app iNaturalist to find areas where people have tagged wild yam. So this is a wonderful one to get out and harvest. It's considered invasive, so whenever we're harvesting, we're doing an ecosystem service, because we also take those bulbils and get rid of them so that they're not continuing to spread. Here we are with elderberry, and in Florida you'll see elderberry growing along many of the highways and roadsides. What you're looking for is this sort of scrappy tree shrub, and how you really notice a lot of these is when they're in bloom. They grow in moist environments, so along the roadsides where there's ditches, watch out for just rows and rows of blooming elderberry. And those flowers are what tell you that if you want the berries, you have to come back in a few months. Now, I have here some dehydrated elderberries, and with this I make tea. You can make elderberry syrup with this, which is important for preventing cold, or if you have a cold, helping to fight it off. And you can also use the flowers. The flowers you can make tea with. You can make elderberry champagne or elderflower champagne, and you can fry those and in a batter and dip them in elderberry jam. Also, here I wanted to talk to you a little bit about propagating. You can grow your own trees and help them to spread through taking cuttings or planting seeds. With elderberry, all you need to do is take a small cutting of the tree. You can stick this into the ground, and a large percentage of these cuttings are going to turn into more elderberry trees. So one of the ways as a forager that we can live in reciprocity is we can also propagate the trees and help them spread. Here we are with Surinam cherry that we've just planted as a community fruit tree. And this is one of my favorite fruits to forage here in Florida. Now, you'll find this growing as a hedge in many urban environments, but most people don't eat the fruits. A lot of people think that they're poisonous, but they're very edible. And some will say delicious, and some will say they don't like it at all. What you're looking for are hedges that are often as part of landscaping, but also you'll find big scrappy trees as well. And you're looking for the little red fruits that are shaped like a pumpkin. And this is Surinam cherry. There's no other fruit that looks like this here in Florida, so you know that you have found it. Surinam cherry is an acquired flavor. A lot of people don't like it. There is the black variety that most everybody likes, and the red variety. It has a unique flavor that really can't be described except to actually try it for yourself. But if you don't like the first tree, don't give up, because the flavor varies a lot from tree to tree, and the more that you eat it, the more that your palate gets adjusted to it. We're elated to have planted this Surinam cherry as part of the 1 Million Community Fruit Trees Initiative. Over the next decade, through a very grassroots collaborative effort, we're planting 1 million fruit and nut trees. And the idea is to make foraging a lot more accessible. So there's a lot more fruit to be eaten in cities all across the country, many of them right here in Florida. If you want to get involved with planting trees, with raising trees, and with supporting this initiative, you can go to communityfruittrees.org. Well, there you have it, my friends. 17 plants that grow right here in Florida, freely and abundantly, that you can forage to change your life. My encouragement to you, start with just one plant. You don't need to eat all 17 of these plants in order to start to transform your life. One plant at a time, you can reconnect with the earth. You can break free from the broken global industrial food system, and you can start to eat in a way that is harmonious with the earth, with the plants and animals, and with our fellow humanity. If you are excited to get started foraging, I recommend also going to my beginner guide for foraging at robingreenfield.org/foraging. Another great way to start is to go out foraging with an instructor. You can go to findaforager.com to find foragers to learn from near you. And my book, Food Freedom, is an incredible resource for all of you here in Florida who are looking to grow abundance and forage the abundance. One plant at a time, we reconnect and we break free, dear friends.